Hi, I'm Sam. Welcome to MentorcliQ's Mentoring Soundbites, where we answer some of the most common and important questions professionals just like you ask about starting, managing, and growing their mentoring programs. Trying to launch programs can be difficult, especially when you need to persuade executive leaders that mentoring is even worth the spend. If you want to learn more about the steps it takes to gain executive buy-in for mentoring programs, check out the video linked at the top. Today, however, we're going to equip you with some hard and fast data you can use to prove that mentoring has merit. Since data changes over time, we recommend you like and subscribe to make sure you get updated when we release new videos on recent mentoring stats. Earlier this year, MentorcliQ performed market research to determine what mentoring looks like among Fortune 500 companies. We discovered that 84% of Fortune 500 companies now have visible mentoring programs. That's significant for two reasons. First, Fortune 500 companies aren't on the list by accident. They create pathways to profit generation by employing excellent strategies across their entire organization. That includes determining best practices for retaining employees and saving money by reducing turnover. What our data reveals is that the vast majority have landed on structured mentoring programs as an important way to engage employees, even in a heavily remote work environment. And guess what? When you narrow that focus to the top 50 companies, 100% have visible mentoring programs. That data is pretty clear. The most profitable companies offer mentoring programs. That's certainly not by accident. We just mentioned that turnover is expensive. Now, here's the data you can put before executive teams to highlight that. Let's start with the total cost. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, the average cost to replace an employee is between 6 to 9 months worth of an employee's salary. At present, the median salary for a business professional is over $76,000 per year, meaning the average replacement cost is between $38,000 and $57,000. Those are just replacement costs, however. What's not factored into that data is the reduction in productivity. Unless you have a large number of redundancies in place to avoid productivity breakdowns, that's difficult to calculate, but a good way to think about it is through the lens of disengagement. When employees quit, those left behind must pick up the slack. Quite often, they can't or they won't. A Gallup study found that disengaged employees cost companies around 34% of their annual salary. If you add that back into the turnover cost, you're already at or above 2 times an employee's salary. As you consider how to persuade your executive teams to fund mentoring programs, make sure you zero in on both the replacement cost and the cost of diminished productivity, the latter of which will vary across organizations and may need to be separately calculated to really drive the point home. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hot topic in business right now, and for good reason. A joint CNBC and SurveyMonkey survey discovered that 80% of workers want to work for a company that values DE&I. It's not enough to pay lip service to that either. Workers are looking for authenticity, and they're willing to shop around for the right company until they find it. That brings us to our last stat for today. MentorcliQ performed market research that discovered 100% of DiversityInc top 50 companies have mentoring programs. The Diversity Top 50 is an annually published list of companies that DiversityInc measures against its own criteria for how well they support DE&I. We found that every company on the list has structured mentoring programs, and most have programs specifically focused on DE&I efforts, such as programs for women, minority groups, and reverse mentoring. Just as with our data on the Fortune 500, consider this to be non-accidental or circumstantial. The companies that are doing the best right now, both in attracting and retaining and generating significant and positive net profits, are all using mentoring programs as an employee engagement strategy. Which mentoring stat struck you as the most surprising? Let us know in the comments below. Selling mentoring programs internally can be a challenge, but at the end of the day, money talks. When you parse the data, mentoring programs are huge cost savers. The larger the program, however, the more likely mentoring software will be needed to ensure the program is launched, managed, and proven to be effective. Running mentoring programs without software will inevitably lead to smaller programs, less effective matches, and a significantly limited impact on engagement and retention goals. Looking for references to the data mentioned in this video? Be sure to check the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe to get updated on more mentoring best practices and videos covering actionable mentoring data like these.